Hello there. I want to talk about self-sabotage, and to do so, I'll introduce a moment. So for the last year, I made more money by about 40% than I did in any other year. And since many of the fixed costs stay the same, that ends up being twice as much money as I've ever made in 30 years of business. So I found it interesting that I lost more than the excess that I made in the markets. And it wasn't coincidental, right? There was this feeling that I had more than I was comfortable, than I was familiar with. And, there went $300,000 in a variety of losses, right? So an extra $300,000 and losing maybe $350,000. So it's going back into familiar territory. Now, at the same time, I created a phenomena of doing an excellent job and then blowing up some little small conflict with several of my clients, such that I didn't get to feel, the pride and joy of doing, 95% of it well above average. There'd be some little thing. And there was always a part of me that was waiting for that, like waiting to be chastised, waiting to be punished, waiting to be kind of held accountable in some way. And it's in my body, right? And it comes before the event. It's just this waiting. So this year I've scaled down a little bit so that I can focus on even more quality, right? And so the money is coming down. But I'm at the end of a job and I just wake up terrified, waiting to be criticized, punished, humiliated, told that I'm wrong, told that I'm bad, and punished in some way. And, I can look at it rationally and say, look, your job is done a month ahead of schedule. It's on budget. 97% of it has gone very well. It's a wonderful design, right? We've given daily responses to the client. We've checked in. We've got a great crew, right? But body memories that kind of link to identity, that link to self-image, have nothing to do with facts, right? Because I've seen crappy contractors who are doing work late, well over budget, poor designs, missing communication, right? They show up and boy, do they want to be paid and praised, and in many cases, the client will do it, right? So it's not about the underlying facts. In many cases, people treat us consistently with what I would call the secret self-image, the body self-image. You look at the paper and it's clear, right? But there's a part in my body that is waiting to be hit that feels the same way that I felt at 5 years old, at 6 years old, when I was waiting to be beaten, waiting to be hit. You see, and that part of me decided that I was bad, that I deserved punishment because I was bad. And that is very rational for a 6-year-old, right? Because the quote, healthy response for an abused child is like, you piece of shit dad, right? You're a coward, right? You beat up your kids to get rid of your own feelings. You decide to have 5 kids, right? You knew what you were getting into the first time, but no, you had to have 5 and then blame your kids for all your problems, right? And make them feel small for your mistakes. Grow up, Dad. Stop being such a coward, right? Don't ask your kids to deal with the feelings that you're too cowardly to deal with. Right? Go fuck yourself, right? You want a punch? Here's a punch, right? So that's a healthy response because it's a little bit more consistent with reality. But when you're dealing with a narcissistic, cowardly person, right? They always pick on people smaller than them, right? So they were picking on you because they could win, right? And they did, right? Anytime you tried to stand up for yourself, he beat you back further, right? And so if you know that you can't win because of the law of mass, right? 3 times the size, parental responsibility can punish you in a variety of covert, passive-aggressive ways, even if you win overtly. And you're dealing with a narcissist, a coward, right? Little vindictive person who wants revenge on his kids, right? If you that's what you're dealing with, well then, you win by not fighting back and not taking quite as much of a beating, right? And so that's what we did. That's what you did, little one, right? And so that's the posture, right? Projecting parent onto the authority figure, onto the client, knowing it's completely unfair, but I'm going to be punished anyway. So it is completely unfair, right? If more than 90% of contracts in the construction industry come in late and over budget with mistakes, and you're coming in early and on budget with better than agreed, right? The fair thing is for you to be praised, but you understood at a young age that life wasn't fair. If it was fair, parents would be required to do a little bit of parental training, right? Before randomly fucking and taking charge of an innocent life, right? That would be fair to the child, right? You want the right to have more impact on my life than any other person in the world, to teach me how to live, and that's coming from you having a penis and feeling like fucking. That's your sole right to that massive responsibility. Yeah, right? It's not fair. It's not intelligent, right? When these scars last a lifetime, it's not intelligent to give them in a few minutes of carelessness and then ask someone else to deal with them for decades. It's not intelligent. It's not efficient. It's not fair. It's not kind. Right? It's cruel, stupid, sociopathic, and unfortunately, in a very cruel and sociopathic culture, it is normal. There's nothing special about the abuse. But nevertheless, right, I have been unsuccessful. Oh, I can give pep talks, right? I can set goals. I've achieved thousands of goals. I can push through it. But I can't stop my body from feeling like a terrified child, waiting to be unfairly hit and punished, and with a feeling that I will die if I push back at all. Because back then I might have, right? Narcissistic sociopaths are quite self-absorbed. They don't say, oh, that's a small body, this is going to affect them, that might kill them. No. It's reactive, right? They're irritating me. Let's hit him. Oh, they didn't mean to hit him that hard, but I guess he's dead, right? Well, one less kid to feed, right? So when dealing, right, I feel that body. I don't know what to do with it. I can meditate. I come back to the images of that body. So we're coming towards the end of a job, and I'm expecting to be punished. And sometimes when you give off that vibe, right, depends on the client, but sometimes clients pick up and they decide that if you're giving off that vibe, you must have done something terrible, right? I don't know what it is, I'm the client, but you're acting kind of like you've done something bad and you deserve to be punished. Have you been stealing from me? So they pick up on the vibe and they try and find it. And it's a terrifying experience because physiologically, I totally agree with them. I'm bad. I deserve to be punished. I don't deserve to be paid. I deserve to be humiliated. I deserve to be criticized, and it's completely unfair, but I deserve to live in an unfair world, right? I agree with abusive clients physiologically, right? And so there's a resonance there, right? And abusers, rapists, etc., they've often said that they can spot their victims. They can find the person who won't fight back, and those are the people they attack, right? Well, my body tells me that I'm going to die if I fight back, because that was the 6-year-old's experience. It is not touchable by rationality. It means absolutely nothing. We're not. All we're talking about here is maybe $5,000 or $10,000. That's it, right? That's what beating me up and punishing me would look like in this situation if the client wants to push something, right? Well, that's not going to make me a bad person, right? But that's the feel. That's the feeling. So first of all, I want you to know that, I'm 48. So if you're feeling this at a younger age, it's not your fault. Anytime after age 6, this is in our body. So it's not your fault. We're both going to have to deal with it until one of us figures out a way around it, right? And you can act tough. I'm not too bad at, doing that, right? When I met with a client today and they started to get, incredibly nitpicky, we're doing landscaping. They're fussing at it as if it's the interior of a house, right? We can hold our own, right, in something like that. But it is the terror, it is the fear, it's the expectation. Like all evening, I haven't been able to enjoy my evening because I'm still expecting. And I think that's one of the more difficult parts, right? When the punishment doesn't come, but the young one believes it will be punished and deserves to be punished, then we get into self-sabotage. Because if you believe you deserve to be punished, and if it hasn't happened yet, there's a suspense, right? And there's this desire to get it over with, to have peace, right? I deserve punishment, so let's find some way of punishing me, right? So the client gives me a check, I lose the check within an hour. And I know what's going on. As soon as I look in my wallet and the check isn't there, it's like, okay, they didn't punish you, so now you're going to punish yourself. That's a terrifying thought. It's a terrifying feeling because you can win if you're competent and on the right side of ethics and the like, you can win with other people, but you cannot win in a war against yourself, right? That 5-year-old is so terrified that he's going to be punished that he wants to bring about the pain now so that he can get it over with, right? So this is the dilemma. And the question is what to do about it, right? And as is often the case in a psychologically illiterate culture that's trying to look good and ignore the depths, I haven't a clue, right? Or we would have done, made progress in this, area long ago. Now, it is worth saying that, that there are layers in this, right? So for the first part of my career, I just charged less money than other people and provided more value, both. And that's a pretty good way to escape criticism and punishment, right? So the fear would come up and I'd say, well, look, I'm providing more value and at less money. It's a pretty good defense, right? And so the belief that I deserve to be punished is playing out in the reduced income, right? So that's a self-inflicted punishment. I'll just charge less than average and provide better service than average and look for praise to reassure that desperate part, right? So, okay, so that worked for a while, right? And so we went through, 25 years of very good service to our clients and stayed very poor, right? Very little to show for it, right? So that's, I would say that's one way that you and I dealt with it, for a couple of decades in work, right? But then came along the nonprofit and wanting to, start putting more money into that nonprofit, right? So then the only way to do that is to start charging, fair market value for services. But then the defense goes away, becomes a little bit less comfortable, right? So that's what the territory we're in now, right? So we're making an average salary for above average work, right? But but there isn't that defense of we're doing more for less. We're doing a little bit more, for fair market value, right? And then we're putting all of that money into the nonprofit. Now, the nonprofit is part of this dynamic, right? Because, of course, I don't deserve, right? I'm a bad person. I deserve to be abused violently and otherwise. So I don't deserve to have a lot of money, right? So the stepping stone to bridging that becomes to donate half of my money to charity, right? To other people, right? Because how can you say that that's deserving of being beaten, right? You're giving half your money to charity, right? And so that it increases the fear with the client, right? And then to protect myself from that, I've been very vocal about how much I've given to charity, right? But why, right? Don't think that I think I have any value, right? I'm doing it for other people, right? I've got to earn so that I can help other people, right? So that's help. But even that, right? Even that wasn't quite enough. I had to lose money in the nonprofits as well as in my personal fund, right? So, and it's interesting to note that while I'm absolutely terrified of being reprimanded, the day I lost $150,000, I get news. You lost $150,000. This bank has gone bankrupt. Who cares, right? It's almost a relief, right? Okay, I've already been punished there, right? So now I don't have to be hit, right? Now I don't have to be hit. So I would just say that, it's some insights around this are you and I can go out there and relate to the world and can overcome enormous outer obstacles. We have achieved more than 3,000 goals, accomplished any number of significant things, did most of the things on our bucket list, all that, right? But that's in a tension with the world. But how do we fight our own body when our own body will relax more if we cause it pain? Because it will be at peace with its self-image, right? That's a difficult one, right? So what I'm doing right now is feeling shitty for no reason at all, right? So the fulfilling the 5-year-old's mandate that we deserve to have pain, the 5-year-old doesn't care where it is, right? We just have to suffer in some way, right? And so if the client, as they did today, had to praise us and gave us the final check without complaining, then we've got to find something new to punish, right? So we'll be extra tense, extra nervous. Maybe we'll get in a car accident. We tried to lose the check, right? Something, right? And, this is a disturbing thought, right? Maybe I ought to just tear up the check or something rather than risk a car accident, because some part of me is determined to suffer, to get it over with. And that part of me, right, is not listening, right? Now, so, what I did, got a good night's sleep, did a morning meditation, did a transcendental another morning meditation, did a recording, voiced it out, acknowledged what's happening, and felt absolutely terrified, but went to the meeting anyway, right? Survived the meeting just fine, came home feeling absolutely terrified, lost the check, found the check, deposited the check feeling absolutely terrified. And it is interesting, right? It is interesting that, right, I could lose a bunch of money and feel relief. But if I succeed in the outer without figuring out how to calm that inner voice, then I just suffer in another way. I just sabotage my happiness, right? I got irritable with my wife, so now I can suffer in that way, right? Because now first I have to be irritable, then it throws her off her game, right? Then she's sulking, so now we can punish each other that way, right? So I think, the only thing that's absolutely clear is that, reducing childhood trauma costs pennies for the amount that it wastes in older life, let alone the relationships. I don't have a close relationship with either parent, right? Because the abuse is in the present, right? The abuse is not, they did that way back then and it's over. No. They gave me a virus of unworthiness that I've been working with and failing to shift because it feels so unfamiliar, so different than the family, so terrifying to be in that new territory. So here I am, right? And so I can honor it. I can bring a little bit more awareness to it, right? I can eat a little bit too much to calm that anxiety. I can, have a couple of days that are a third as enjoyable as they easily could be just by feeling good about myself. Right? But it is a riddle. And what I often find is that as I talk about a riddle, I'll sometimes get some insights. At the very least, I'll remember the riddle more. And so maybe I'll work on it over the next few days. And you, as a younger version of me get a head start to think about, like, you can probably already see some of the things that I might be doing wrong. Right? It has occurred to me to do inner child meditation and all that. But as I get near that traumatized part of me, I just feel frozen and intimidated by getting closer. But that's one final thought that I would like to say, right? You and I have criticized our parents and the culture for profound cruelty and incompetence, and rightly so. But we're as old and smart as we're likely to get. You and I have had as much chance as any other grown-up in this idiotic cult to figure out what to do about this, right? And I'm not doing any better than Dad. I mean, I guess you could say that I admit it, right? Dad would pretend that none of this was happening, and if you tried to talk about it, he'd humiliate you and make it worse, right? So I'm not doing that, right? So I'm basically Dad in his level of stupidity around this without the lies and the humiliation. Although you could say calling oneself stupid is humiliating and internalizing the abuser itself, but that's about as far as we've gotten, is being honest. And maybe, right, because Sherilyn, one of the things that I've always despised about her was that she couldn't admit, right? She would be cruel, she would be hypocritical, profoundly stupid at our expense as kids, right? But she couldn't admit it. She wouldn't ever admit it, right? And, what do you do with someone that's so dumb that doesn't realize? They're too dumb to realize that they're dumb, right? A smart person says, gosh, this is dumb. But, a dumb person, how are they going to figure out that it's dumb? Right? But, I understand to a certain extent it feels helpless, frustrating, painful to see all this damage, all this pain from this pattern and not know what to do about it, right? So maybe they just decided to pretend it wasn't happening because it was painful for them to notice and they didn't know what to do with it either, right? But that's one thing that I've always promised to you and to others, is I'm not going to lie, right? I may repeat some of my family dynamics and be cruel in certain ways or be dumb in certain ways that, those were my teachers, right? Nobody else showed me a better way of doing it, and, right, I've got other things to do. I haven't come up with a better way to do everything, right? But I've never lied about it, right? I said, yeah, you're right. Yes, that is not fair. Yes, that may be arrogant. Or, yes, I didn't keep that agreement. I'm sorry. What can I do to make that right? I'm not going to pretend I never made the agreement, right? Because that was always the thing that hurt the most. So this could be a step in the right direction to be candid about it, right? But it still feels pretty shitty, right? My body feels heavy, bloated, anxious, and I have no idea what to do with it, right? I go on my walk, I do this, I achieve my goals, and the body stays the same, right? In other words, my 5-year-old, if it can't sabotage and create someone else punishing me, it'll just punish my own body. It's all about the same, right? Lots of money and outer success feeling like shit is no better than feeling great with a shitty outer reality, right? It's the felt human experience that matters. So anyway, let's hope that you get a start from hearing someone tell you the truth.